What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where in this one, we're going to talk a little bit about the practice squad, just kind of some of the roster moves that have happened. I put out a short the other day. I know a lot of you probably saw it. We'll talk about a little bit of that, but really just want to go over kind of what we're looking at with the practice squad, some guys that are coming back into the building after getting waived, and kind of where we sit right now. So we already went over the active roster. I think some of the moves, just in case you didn't see the YouTube short that we put out the other day, we have Samuel Womack, former Colt, former 49er, gets claimed by Tennessee. Jelani Woods goes to the Jets. Juju Brents gets claimed by the Dolphins, which just hopefully that one doesn't come back to bite us in week one. Don't know what his playing status is going to be in week one there for the Dolphins. He's brand new there. How much is he really going to play? But nonetheless, Juju Brents, Samuel Womack, Jelani Woods, those guys all get picked up. And we're going to be seeing Juju Brents and the Dolphins in week one. Now, as we go forward, right, a lot of what we're going to talk about is guys that were put on the practice squad, but there is one guy that was added to the active roster, and because of that, somebody had to get dropped from the active roster, so we ended up claiming linebacker Chad Muma, I believe that's how you say that, off of waivers from Jacksonville, somebody who, from everything I've seen, really has more of a special teams utility, somebody who could be useful in pass coverage, but really this is probably a special teams move, trying to get more linebackers to fill in some of those special team spots, which makes sense. We only had 4 linebackers on the active roster. Right now we have 5, and with him coming in, Tim Smith, the defensive tackle we drafted this year, he ends up getting waived after being able to make the team. Through the preseason and through training camp, obviously without Grove and Buck in the lineup, the run defense suffered. Like, there's no question about it. So still, Tommy Ade included, right? Somebody who's been on the roster for a little while. Like, there's some work to be done there. But I thought Tim Smith shows good effort. I think he has really good athleticism for his size. But he's somebody who is going to need some development, somebody you're going to want to put more size on in there on the interior. And I think Grover Stewart would be a guy, like a guy with like Tim Smith and his skill set. I think him getting under Grove, and those are two different people. Grove is an animal. He is a massive human being, extremely strong, right? And just seems like every year just continuing to get stronger. And that's where I want to see Tim Smith grow. Just keep getting bigger, keep getting stronger, right? Be that force in the middle, and we'll see if he's able to do that. But the other players on the practice squad, going through this, the initial guys put on the practice squad, there were a couple more available spots on the practice squad, but we have Austin Ajak, who ends up coming back. Ulysses Bentley IV does end up coming back onto the practice squad. Nobody picked him up, thank goodness, and we were able to get him back on the practice squad. Thought he showed really good stuff throughout this offseason, both training camp, the preseason games. I think there's really no question that he's a guy that deserves some sort of roster spot. I think practice squad always made the most sense, even though we are a team that typically carries 4 running backs. At least in the past we've had to have that depth. Now, during Shane Steichen's time, Jonathan Taylor and that whole situation when Steichen got here, not knowing if he's going to play, started the year on the PUP, dealt with injury through that first year, right? Missed a little time last year. We've had to keep 4 running backs on the active roster, and we'll see what happens because we also have Khalil Herbert, right, veteran in the NFL, and he ends up being on our practice squad. Now, he's somebody who's been injured, and so we'll see, what his timeline is, when's he even going to be available. So I do suspect at some point we may drop an offensive lineman somewhere. I think that would be the most logical spot. I believe we still have 10. Ulysses Bentley IV, I think there could still be a chance for him to make the active 53-man roster, but we'll see what happens. And, of course, if anything happens there, I'll let you know. As we continue to go here, Marcellus Johnson, the tackle, Tyler Coleman ends up making the practice squad, and that actually does change as we go forward. There are other moves that are made. So, again, this was the first list of players that came out. Tyler Coleman was on there. Darrell Nachami, number 74, the defensive end, who at different points kind of made some plays there in the preseason. So I think it makes sense to bring him back and continue his development. Coleman Owen does end up coming back to the Colts. Didn't get picked up on waivers, which I actually thought was pretty surprising. But of course, you're picking somebody up on waivers. They got to make the active roster. And so I think Coleman Owen, people see still needs development. They didn't want to put him on the active roster. Luckily for us, he ends up coming back. If there are any sort of injuries at any point, he's somebody that we could easily see end up coming up. There's also center Mose Vavau. I'm not really sure how to say his last name, to be completely honest with you, but this is a guy that one of the practices I saw, he was really just kind of ruining the whole thing. Snap over the quarterback's head, snaps that were low. He ended up getting replaced in that practice because it was messing up practice with him snapping. So, and Dalton Tucker in the last preseason game played a little center. So there's some movement there, and we'll see if he ends up sticking. Josh Sills, another offensive lineman, somebody who's been here for a couple years, former Eagle. He's back on the practice squad. Maximilian Mang, somebody who, you kind of figured was going to get cut, but nonetheless, incredible name. Maximilian Mang has an incredible name. And I actually made a comment on Twitter when I saw that he was waived about how he has the coolest name in the NFL, maybe the coolest name in the NFL. And the actual Maximilian Mang ended up seeing that and ended up liking it, which I thought was pretty cool. I said something about, if I ever have a son, I'm going to name him Maximilian, and he liked that tweet, which I thought was pretty cool. But then you have Josh Tupou, defensive tackle. Sean McKeon, who pretty obvious wasn't going to make the active roster with what we have, but they decided to bring him back in. He'll probably be a scout team guy. Chris Lamons, cornerback, somebody we're very familiar with there. I already mentioned Khalil Herbert. And then you have safety Trey Washington. So those are the 14 names, right, that end up coming back onto the practice squad initially. But then since then, right, and that was August 27th, so that was 2 days ago. And then yesterday, the Colts ended up bringing in a couple other guys and let one go. So they said we signed safety Ben Nickel and wide receiver Tyler Scott to the practice squad. We also released wide receiver Tyler Coleman from the practice squad, which I thought was kind of inevitable if they found a better option. But that does currently fill out the spots on the practice squad. So right now we're filled up roster. We have the guys that we're going to have. And when you look at the complete roster and you look at the different injuries, you have the injured reserve. You have injured reserve designated to return. And on the injured reserve list, these are the guys that are out for the full season. Salvin Ahmad, Blake Freeland, DJ Montgomery, Jacob Phillips, Justin Wally, Jack Wilson, and Hunter Wohler, right? And then Jalen Carlisle is designated to return at some point, so we'll see what happens there. But then, again, practice squad all filled out. And then, obviously, we added a linebacker to the active roster. So as things continue to happen, as things continue to change, I'll update you guys as soon as I possibly can. Hopefully, no news comes out later in the day. Today, I do, work the day job later today, and then I'll work again early in the morning. Want to be able to get you guys content as soon as possible. So hopefully, there's a little cooperation here on the side of the Colts if they decide to make any roster moves. But nonetheless, that's what we're looking at right now. So you let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Is there anything that surprised you? Anything that excites you, right? For me, it's Coleman Owen and Ulysses Bentley coming back. Khalil Herbert being there that I really enjoy, right? And sitting here looking at the list, I think those are really the three guys that I was looking at. I believe Isaiah Land, if I'm not mistaken, may have gotten picked up from the Dallas Cowboys. But nonetheless, we do not get Isaiah Land back, unfortunately. So, but pretty happy with what we got. And of course, guys on the practice squad, you really don't want to have to see them get into the game, although Ulysses Bentley and Coleman Owen, if they have to, kind of be excited to see what they do against real NFL talent. But nonetheless, that's the content for right now. You guys, if you enjoy the content, make sure to hit the like button and make sure you guys are subscribed with notifications on so you continue to get notified anytime we drop any content on this channel. Of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.